Hello, hello, hello. Let me know when people start logging in. Hello, everybody. Now you can hear me. Hey, everybody. So it looks like we've got about a minute before 6 o'clock, and I'm going to get started right on time. So. Boy. Hope everybody's having a great night. Hope you had a nice, enjoyable weekend. Everybody's getting ready for Halloween in a couple of days. Hopefully everybody has their decorations up and their candy purchased, and you're ready for all those little ghouls and goblins that are going to make their way to your house and come rapping on your door.
6.
All right, 6 o'clock. Hello, my name's Gerald Kostecka. I want to welcome you to this next training session that we're doing, which is going to be focused on the competition. Now, I'm doing the whole, quotes in the air thing. Because in my opinion, an Adjic really doesn't have any competition. We don't. There's other ionizer manufacturers and other manufacturer brands, but that doesn't necessarily make them competition. I think if somebody's going to be realistic, if you looked at Rolls-Royce really doesn't have any competition. They just don't. And when you're the best in your class, you really don't have competition. Besides people trying to compete with you. So I'm going to try to clarify a few things about the competition. I'm very well versed in this. I've done a lot of research over the 11 plus years that I've been here with an Adjic. I've got a lot of information. So we're going to dive right into this and start covering some things about the competition and about what you can do as a distributor to basically improve the odds of you not being adversely affected by what our so-called competition engages in. Okay, and I'm going to be covering some of those things in tonight's training. So let's jump right into it. So before you address other brands out there, before you take on other brands that are out there, it's very important that you actually know your brand. Okay, and if you're watching this, your brand should be an Adjic. Now I know that other people are watching this that aren't with an Adjic because they want to know what it is I have to say that might be towards what they do. So I do know that other people are going to be watching this, but you know what? I don't really care, because what I'm going to go over, unless they're going to change their ways, it's not going to really matter anyway. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that you really understand the company that you're with, which is an Adjic. Having a clear understanding of the company that you're with is going to give you a much better chance to identify the differences between what an Adjic is and has compared to what some of these other companies are and what they have to offer. Okay? So if you're going to learn all you can about an Adjic, there's a few things that you probably want to cover. Okay? One, you want to find out the history of the company. All right? You're talking about a 40-plus-year-old company that has gone through a lot of the growing pains necessary to become the industry gold standard. Okay? So having a clear understanding of the history of the company is going to help empower you and let you know what you're a part of. That's the other thing that's important, is that, a lot of people don't understand that as an authorized independent distributor for Enagic, you're an Enagic representative. You are out there representing the company. And so if you're going to be out there representing the company, would it be a good idea to know the company you're representing? Really know the history? Really have a clear understanding of, some of the things that maybe Mr. Oshiro went through personally that affected him in a professional way, and that, challenges that he faced and the way that he faced them ultimately brought him to where we are today. So it's important to understand that journey that he went through that got us here, so you can have a greater appreciation, I think, maybe more than anything else. Having knowledge and appreciation, two very important things, okay? The next thing is the philosophy. Just understanding the idea of true health. What does that really mean? I think one of the problems of our time is that we live in snippets. It's just, true health. Well, it sounds good. Body, mind, spirit. Yeah, it's okay. Finances. But when it really comes down to it, this is a very complex philosophy. It's simple in its design, but it's complex in its, application, because there's so many facets to it, okay? It's like a diamond. It's like a cut diamond. To bring out every beautiful part of it, that's what those little cuts are for. So they can create this overall picture. Well, that's kind of what Enagic is. And it's important that you know each facet. So, we want to make sure that the philosophy is something that you're really familiar with and you understand. The next thing is honors, awards, and certificates. It is vital that you really understand what all of these different things are. Now, what people have to understand is that I've been in and around this now for, actually over 12 years, because there was almost a full year that I was checking stuff out before I ever became actually connected with Enagic. So I've looked into this a lot, okay? And so I'm able to spout off the NSF, ANSI, all these different certifications, ISO, 14001, 134. I know all of these ones. A brand new person, though, probably isn't completely up to speed on all of the different certifications, things of that nature. So it's important that you do find out about each one of those things, and not just find out what their names are, find out what their significance is, and find out how that separates us, okay? Find out how that makes us different. And that's the fourth thing that I put down here. Find the differences that really make Enagic different. Okay? So find those things. And you might have to put a little work in, but you know what? It's okay. This is a business. This is not some scam. This is not some, pyramid scheme or anything like that. Okay? It's none of that stuff. This is a legitimate business. And when you're in a legitimate business, you need to know your stuff. Okay? So really, understand those things about Enagic and empower yourself with what the differences really are, and then realize one of the biggest differences in what Enagic is compared to everybody else, and this is going to maybe sound a little cheesy, but it's you. If you really think about it, you are one of the biggest differences that Enagic has in the marketplace introduction of their product. Your passion, your drive, your determination, your belief, your commitment, all of those things Enagic has, and you're not even an employee. You're not a paid employee. But you have been given this opportunity. Actually, you haven't been given anything. You have decided to make this your opportunity. Enagic has the vehicle to make it happen. That is something they gave to us. But we have to be the ones that decide to get behind the wheel and drive this bad boy. Okay? So you really are one of the biggest differences in Enagic. And when you realize that, then you can fill in the blanks for the rest of this stuff. But you really do have to understand that. Okay? All right, let's dive right into this, okay? So once you kind of know who you are with Enagic, there are some things that if you want to be able to go toe-to-toe with our so-called competition, you need to know some of the games that they play, and you need to know some of the information that's going to help you be able to overcome those things, okay? So the first thing is the technology itself. So here's a question. Why are consumers so, they have no idea of what's going on in this industry and everything, right? So they think that this product is unlike any other consumer product in the marketplace. But the reality is, guys, it's not. As a matter of fact, it's just like every other consumer product in the marketplace, in as much as all of the consumer rules still apply. You might not be familiar with technology, but that doesn't mean that somehow it does. Look, I don't really understand how this thing works completely. I know there's radio waves and there's digital stuff, but if you had to ask me to write a one-page overview of how my cell phone works, the page is going to be blank, okay? Because I really don't know. But that doesn't mean that I don't understand that Samsung is a major player in this industry. It doesn't mean that I don't understand that if I decide to buy a phone that costs $19.99, I might have some reception issues. Okay? Why? Because you get what you pay for, right? So one of the things I think is important for people to understand and recognize is that when you're talking about technology, if it's unfamiliar to the person you're talking to, then speak to them in terms that are familiar. Okay? I'm like the king of the what do I call it? The analogies. I'm the king of the analogies. I really am. Because I can talk to a person, and just by talking to them for a couple minutes, I can identify what it is they identify with. So if somebody's a real car enthusiast, I will talk to them about, comparing cars. I want to put it in a context that they understand, okay? So when you're talking about the technology, you have to be familiar with it, okay? Couple things you need to know. You need to discover the differences, all right? You should jot these things down and then make it a point to try to find out what these differences are. So the first thing is plate construction and the type of plates. Mesh, solid, slotted. There's all sorts of goofiness that goes on in this thing. But, basically, if you understand the plate construction and the plate types and the benefits or drawbacks to each one, you will be able to then, when the competition comes at your prospect with, this or that, you'll know how to deal with it. Why? Because you know what they're talking about. See, one of the things you have to realize is that even if you're brand new, okay, if you're brand new and there's a brand new person at one of our competitors, that other brand new person, they are an employee. I want you to understand that. That means they've been handed a script of exactly what to say when someone calls in. So the information they're going to be giving is going to be the same as somebody who's been working there for 5 years. Because that's how they do their stuff. So where you might have a learning curve, their brand new people can jump right into it. And they can start, throwing their stuff out there. So it's important that you know these things so that if your prospects are presented with contrary information or information that you need to basically not necessarily confirm, but just, kind of put into focus and make sure that they understand what's really going on, okay? The next thing is the internal filters, okay? It's really important that you understand that some of these other machines that are out there, they have dual filters. One of them takes things out and one of them puts things in, okay? So, and how do you know that? Well, because they actually put the contents of the filters on their website. There's certain things that they have in their filters that they don't absorb. They don't draw anything out of the water. They're specifically in there to release things into the water. So getting up to speed with that and understanding that is an important piece too. Why? Because the filter's cheating. If the filter is putting alkaline-rich minerals into the water that is supposed to be ionized and becoming alkaline-rich through a natural ionization or through that ionization process, but they're actually infusing alkaline-rich minerals into the water so that when it comes out of the other end and you test it, it appears to be more alkaline. I'm sorry, folks, but in my book, that's called cheating. You're not getting what you're paying for. So it's important that you understand that, okay? Flow rates and restrictors. This is another thing with the technology with some of these other machines out there. I don't know if anybody's ever turned on our machine and turned it on full blast and gotten water and drank it. It was delicious and you tested and everything was beautiful. If you've ever seen one of some of these other machines actually operate, most of them come out at a trickle, an absolute trickle. But why? Why would that happen? Because there is a restrictor on the source water input that physically limits the amount of water that's able to pass through the machine. So you might be going, wow, well, why would they be doing that? And that's exactly why you need to learn this. Because if you don't know why, then you don't understand the pertinence to it. That the longer the water is in physical contact with those plates, the stronger the properties will be when they come out of the machine. Okay? So if I restrict the flow, physically slow down the flow of the water passing over those plates, it is going to have a stronger charge when it first comes out. And what the problem is, though, is that the majority of these machines do not have a strong enough power supply to make those properties be able to last a long time. And that's one of the other things that we're different with, okay? So the flow rate restrictors, understand that. It takes us right into the next one, which is the power supply and the actual power of the machines. Now, a very interesting thing that I have discovered in doing a lot of the research that I've done on different brands is that, you'll get these different sellers who put out information about their machine when it comes to, the amount of power, all the ORP levels, the pH levels. And one of the things that I've discovered, and it's just about across the board, is that for resellers, even private labelers, the information that they put out there to prospects and to the people looking at their stuff is not the same as the actual people who made the machine. Okay? Matter of fact, just recently, I came across one that they said that their ORP could go as low as a negative 860. Okay? That's pretty good. Also said it had a pH range from 3 to 11.5. Okay? When you go to the actual manufacturer's website and find the exact same product that they're talking about, the manufacturer's specs, on it said that the ORP had a range of a negative 500 to a positive 500. Okay? Just so you know, our machine has a rating about a negative 7 to 800. And again, depending on source water, it depends on a lot of things. Negative 7 or 800, all the way to a positive 1,000 plus. That's the strong acidic, the sanitizing water. Okay? Has to have a super high positive ORP. Well, saying that you can go down as low as 860 on a negative ORP and as high as a positive 1,200, but when the manufacturer specs say negative 500 to a positive 500, that is a dramatic difference. Okay, dramatic. Same thing when their specs say that their pH levels go from 4 to 10. Well, I don't know if you guys understand the way that the pH scale works with the logarithmic scale. But it's not 1 every time you go from like 7 to 8. That's not 1, that's 10 times. Okay? So 7 to 9 is actually 100 times. 7 to 10 is 1,000 times. 7 to 11 is 10,000 times more alkaline than neutral. Okay? So a difference between a top rating of 10 and a top rating of 11.5, that's huge, but you have to understand that. You have to know that in order to be able to go, wait, I call shenanigans. Okay? So it's important that you find that stuff out. Also, the type of power, the power supply itself is also a very important consideration. This right here, let's see. I printed this out real quick because this is about the power supply. And it's important that you know what this is. It's important that you understand what that is, because if you understand what our power supply is, how it was built, why it was built the way it is, why it's a combination of an SMPS, a transformer, and a thing called a MOSFET, okay? if you understood why all those things were put together to make our power supply, then you'll understand why ours is superior to any other machine on the market. Okay, so find those things out. The components themselves. Look, if you really want to be able to go, okay, I get the difference, find one of these other machines. Find one of ours, put them side by side, and then just start feeling it. Feel the hoses. Look at the hoses. Look at the difference between a half-inch hose and a quarter-inch hose. Okay? It's the quality difference of the components is so obvious, but not if you don't have the opportunity to see one of these other machines. So it's important that you got to figure out a way to be able to see one of these things. You know, when there's a training at the office, or if you know somebody has some of these that you can actually inspect, check it out, because I can assure you there is no better testimonial about that than you experiencing it personally. There really isn't, okay? Because if you see it, feel it. I felt one, and I was just like, it looked really, it was shiny, and it looked like it was metal, and I walked up to it, and it was plastic. And it felt so cheap. I was like, what is this? And that was one of those moments. It was one of those aha moments where I realized, okay, you know what? You know, these guys want to try to compare themselves like it's apples to apples. And it's, you know, look, we're not in the same universe, man. It's apples to lug nuts. It's not even, you know, what they have isn't even, you know, in the same realm as what we have. Okay? And I think one of the biggest things too, ability. Now, somebody might go, well, you know, a water ionizer makes ionized water. So, you know, they're all pretty much the same. Well, they're not. And one of the clearest indicators of that is the fact that our machine has the ability to be used in a commercial application. That's one of the biggest things. Well, why would that be such a big thing, Jerry? Well, I don't know. Let's think about that. First off, do you think that a commercial application is going to require a little bit more in the way of checking things out before it's implemented? Do you think it might need a little bit more in the way of certifications and testing protocols to make sure that whatever's there is going to be safe enough for public consumption or for use in a public type venue? See, all of these things are very important aspects. And the reality is the Enagic machines, actually by law, if you're going by the actual certifications that are required to have it in a commercial application, the Enagic machines are the only ones that should be in any kind of commercial application. And quite frankly, they're the only ones that can really handle the rigorous requirements of a commercial type piece of equipment. Because our machine can actually handle that high usage and, you know, constant usage, where some of these machines, quite literally, man, if you run them for longer, 15 or 20 minutes, they shut themselves down for half an hour. That's kind of tough to tell your customers, oh, can you wait a half an hour because our machine that makes the water that we're going to make your soup with, it won't turn on, okay? So understand those things about the technology, very important. And you want to learn enough to be able to speak with authority, okay? That is an extremely important piece. You need to be able to speak with authority, and all that means is you know what you're talking about. So when somebody throws something at you, you can respond. You can respond. And if you're able to respond quickly, effectively, and honestly, you're going to put yourself in a very good position, okay? All right, the next one we're going to cover is the ionizer companies themselves. And the first thing I'm going to say is do not be afraid of them, but be prepared for them, okay? Don't be afraid of these guys. There's nothing to be afraid of, okay? But you do have to be prepared. And the way that you have to be prepared is by knowing the games they play and how to counteract those games. That's what you need to know, okay? So talking about the ionizer companies, let's talk about the different types, okay? So the first type of company is manufacturers. And that's exactly what it sounds like. The companies that actually manufacture. Now, in our industry, there is really only one global manufacturer that offers factory direct. Now, if you understand what factory direct means, it means the product itself is coming directly from the manufacturer. Now, you do have to understand that as a distributor, I don't stock inventory. Neither do you, right? So we're not wholesalers. We're not wholesalers. We don't have that typical retail chain that has multiple people involved in it. And the reason that's an important piece is that those multiple people are what brings the price up. So when you have the manufacturer who sells to a wholesaler, a national wholesaler, they mark the price up because now they're going to sell it to regional wholesalers who will sell it to local wholesalers who will sell it to local retailers who put it in their stores. So by the time you get it, there's a markup of anywhere from 5 to, in some cases, 5,000%, depending on the product. There's so many different things involved. So a lot of these other sellers that are out there, because they're not the manufacturer, because they're not the factory, they're buying wholesale, marking it up, and then selling it at retail. Okay? So just understand that and realize that. The next one is the authorized resellers. Now, authorized resellers are just that. A company typically in either Korea, Taiwan, or even China. Okay? They have a brand. They find somebody who's willing to be the representative for that brand, like in the United States. Then that representative buys inventory at wholesale, sells it at retail. Okay? Now, the reason that can be dangerous for the consumer is that those authorized resellers, they actually have very limited liability. If they go out of business, that means that now you're going to have to try to contact the company itself in Korea or Taiwan or China if you need any support, or if you need any kind of anything as far as dealing with the machine itself. Let's say that it breaks down. What do you do with it then if that authorized reseller decides to no longer be an authorized reseller? What if they just scrap it? They just say, I'm not going to do this anymore. Which they can, because you have to remember, the only thing keeping them in business is that limited inventory that they have put money into so that they can raise the price and then sell it to the consumer. Okay? Also, you have to understand that the reality is these people specialize in sales, not service. Okay? Sales is their area of expertise, not service, not ionization. Okay? All right. The next one is private label. Okay? Private label, one of the things is they have very, very limited inventory, small inventory, and they are sellers, not support. Okay? That's really what they do. They're sellers and they're not support. Just so you know, I actually know for a fact of a company that is a private labeler. They have gone and they slap their company name on a machine that another business and another company has made. And the way that they support problems is when people have a machine that is either having problems or they no longer want, they return it. There was a room filled with these machines. So when somebody would call and they would send their machine in because they was having a support issue, like the plates went out or the power supply went out, they literally would go to one of the return machines or a defective machine, take it apart. And as long as the part that was defective wasn't the part that this person needs replaced, they will simply Frankenstein the thing together. Okay? You know what I mean by that? Pull that one part from this other machine, a used machine, and then put it into this other one as a replacement. I know for a fact that this has been done. Okay? Now, as a consumer, would you want that with your product? I'm assuming no. And I don't think most consumers would. And the only reason they would buy from that company is because they have no idea that type again, shenanigans. I love that word because shenanigans are one of the best ways to describe the way that a lot of these guys operate. Okay? Here's some red flags. Okay? That's what I call these. And if you can identify these, so when you're looking at a company that sells a water ionizer, if these pop up, these are red flags, and these are things that you should remind consumers of. It's really interesting. If we simply remind people of what they already know, they're the ones that will come to the conclusion that that's not the right way for them to go. See, we a lot of times are so preoccupied with trying to convince somebody that they should do this that we forget just to allow them to have the facts from both sides, and they'll come up with the decision themselves. Okay? So remember these. Number one, major red flag. The company only sells one model. Oh, well, why would that be a major red flag, Jerry? I don't know, because one size does not fit all, especially not with this. And if they only have one model, it means they're trying to do the very least possible to serve the needs of the consumers. That's it. They're trying to make some dough. That's all. They found this machine that they think is going to be their meal ticket, that they can add on an extra $1,500 to $2,000 to it, to what they paid for it, and get some. Because what are they going to do? They're going to take their machine that they paid a couple $100 for. They're going to slap on a great big, $2,500 price tag on it, then compare themselves to us at $4,000 or even $5,000, the K8, and then they're going to say, oh, but if you order now, we'll give you a discount to $2,000. And the people on the other end, they're like, oh, wow, what a great deal. What they don't understand is that person still marked it up, and they're walking off with a lot of dough in their pocket for a very inferior product. Okay? So the one model, big time. Limited contact information. People probably wouldn't even think about this, but one of the first things I do whenever there's a new, the flavor of the month type of thing with these new ionizer companies that keep popping up, because they're not new. They're all coming out of the same factory out of Korea. That's the majority of these machines do come out of a factory, the same one, which means they're the same machine with just different skins and different names on them. But the guts, the part that's important, it's the same. Okay? Go to their contact information. If there isn't a physical address listed, if there isn't a direct telephone number, preferably a toll-free number if you're not in their area, if those things if they're not there, that's a red flag. If the only way that you have to communicate with this place is through a submitted form, which means you put in your name, your first name, your last name, your little message, you hit submit, and it goes into internet wherever the heck it goes, because you have no idea where it's actually going. If that's the only contact information that they have on their website, or at all, man, that's a major red flag. If they don't have a physical address that you can look up and do a Google Earth on and be able to actually see the physical location of where they are, hey, you know what then? Yeah, maybe you should think twice, okay? Lifetime warranties. Really? Really, you guys? I don't know how this became such an issue for our industry. Because, let me ask you this, in all seriousness, where do you get lifetime warranties? Oh, wait, when you bought your car, right? Oh, wait, no. Car typical warranty is what? 3 years to outside 10? Okay? But no lifetime. A lifetime warranty is a sales gimmick. It's a way of making a person think that they have nothing to fear. Well, that's until you start reading the fine print about the warranty, and then you find out that if they pass hard water through it, it voids the warranty. Oh, wait, that lifetime warranty that you put so much faith in, now it's voided. Oh, if you use it for other than what they consider consumer use. I read one of their say. It said if you make more than 5 gallons in 1 day, 5 gallons, 1 day, that's considered commercial use. Well, let me tell you something, okay? There's 4 people in my household. My son by himself drinks about 1.5 gallons to 2 gallons a day. I drink 1.5 gallons to 2 gallons a day. My wife drinks about 1 gallon a day. My brother-in-law drinks about 1 gallon a day. Well, guess what? Just between us, that's 6 gallons. So if I had one of their machines and I drank the amount of water that I typically drink on a daily basis, my family did, we would void their lovely lifetime warranty because we drank too much water. Because my 6 gallons of personal drinking would constitute commercial use. See, if you understand the games, you can know that's a game that you don't want to play as a consumer, okay? So realize this, if you don't see something like with other normal products, it's probably not legit. So I want you to really, really think about it, okay? And when you talk to your prospects, mention these things. When they say, well, I saw this ionizer that has a lifetime warranty. You go, that's funny. I see a lot of those products too. They're on late night television And they're typically, they're $19.99, and if you buy one now, you'll get another one free. Just pay additional shipping and handling, and it comes with a lifetime warranty. If you don't know, if you haven't seen those, well, then you don't stay up as late as I do, but that's very, very possible. But I think everybody knows what I'm talking about. And when you start mentioning that, then all of a sudden you're like, the consumer, the prospect that you're talking to, they now are looking at it like, oh, wait a second, you know what? You're right. That is the only place I've ever seen these lifetime warranties, is on some, sketchy product that I've ordered some of these things that had lifetime warranties. They were broken when I got them. They did not work when they arrived. Okay? So you got to be real cautious about that. Organized smear campaigns, man. That's another thing too. If you go to a website of another ionizer brand and they are going out of their way to put attention on a different machine, let me ask you this in all seriousness. Have you ever gone to like Mercedes-Benz website? I can pretty much promise you this. You're not going to find Cadillacs on there. You're not going to find BMWs on there. You're not going to find Hondas on there. You know what you're going to find? Mercedes. Well, why? Because when you're the best, you don't have to stoop to putting focus on somebody else to try to make yourself look better. Okay? So be cautious of those organized smear campaigns. As a matter of fact, just recently, Kevin, this is for you, I ran across a company who they have a page on their website, okay? If you guys understand what a screenshot is, it's like whatever's on your screen, you can like basically take a picture of it and then turn it into an image. Well, a lot of times, because I know how these guys operate, because they're virtual, they change their stuff on their websites all the time. So if I'm ever going to reference something I find on a website, I do what's called a screenshot, which means I capture that page in the way it looks in that moment. So even if 5 minutes later they come through and change the whole thing, I have evidence and proof of what I'm referring to. This particular page, okay, in order for me to get the entire thing from top to bottom, I had to take 11 screenshots. 11. Take 11, okay? Most of the time, it takes 1 or 2, maybe 3 to get an entire page screenshot. It took 11, and all of it was information slamming a Enagic, basing on an Enagic, undermining an Enagic. And this is on this other company's website. Okay, now, most consumers, when they first look at that, they think that company's doing them a favor, but they're not. And that's what you have to remind them of. Why in the world would that other company put any other product other than their own on their website? It makes no sense, okay? Unless they're trying to say, ooh, this one's bad, and we're better than it. Look, we'll compare ourselves to them. Okay, first off, a comparison. We all know this, and I'm going to cover this again, but why would one company compare themselves to another? Because the other company's better than them. Why? Would you ever compare yourself to somebody who was worse? Would you? If I said I could jump like Michael Jordan, in your mind, you're like, wow, you must be able to jump really, really high. Okay? So that's exactly what I would want to do. Now, if that's not the case, and I was to say, I can jump like a 6-month-old baby, I don't know if a lot of people would be like, oh, impressive. No. Why? Because it's a terrible analogy. It's a terrible, comparison. Because people don't do that. They don't compare themselves to something that is lower or doesn't make them look better. Okay? So it's very important. Here's another one too. Things like the Better Business Bureau. Look that stuff up. Check them out. Check people out. But really read stuff, because there's a lot more to it. You got to let somebody know, if you're going to go and check something out, you need to make sure that you don't just look at the superficial stuff, that little splash page. You need to look at the information that's there, because it's there to protect you as a consumer, okay? Also, things like trade associations. The affiliations that companies have that are geared to protect the consumer. The more of those affiliations and associations that a company has with outside companies, the better protected the consumer is. Remind them of that. Because if you remind them of that, when they go and find out that most of these other companies, one, they don't have any of the certifications that they claim to, but even the ones that do, they're not really important ones. They're not ones that have any real importance for the consumer when it comes to the product, the quality, the functionality, things like that, okay? And also verifiable honors and recognition. And I'm going to stress the word verifiable because, again, I have been on numerous websites that have all these things at the top of the websites, all these little certification logos and, the WQA and the this and the that. And then I've reached out and contacted those companies to say, hey, is this true? So, like this right here. I don't know if you guys remember this from last week. You guys remember this from last week? This is this company that what does that headline say? Consumer Reports, okay? They make it look like they're Consumer Reports. So I contacted Consumer Reports and I asked them if this was them. And they said no. Okay? So it's important that you understand some of the shenanigans that these guys will engage in order to try to trick consumers. And that's all it is. That's what they're trying to do, okay? So make sure that whatever honors or recognition is being touted, that it's verifiable. And if for any reason that it can't be verified, then 99.9% of the time, it's not real. It's not. They're not being truthful. They're not being honest, okay? All right, next one is virtual presence. This one gets me sometimes because, you want to make sure that a company has offices and service centers. Now, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but Enagic has more offices and service centers throughout the world than any other ionizer company, bar none. Okay? Just here in the United States, there's 7 different offices, including the headquarters that are in Torrance. Now, the majority of these other guys that are out there that are selling machines, they're internet-based companies. Almost all the rest. Okay? And what I mean by that is they don't really have a location. Here's something else that I don't know if you guys know this or not, but did you know that Enagic, at every one of their office locations, have machines hooked up? They have machines set up in order to allow people to get free samples of water. I'd say that's pretty good. I would say that's pretty good because none of these other guys do that. So why does Enagic? Honestly, because they can. And that's about a water quality issue more than anything else. Okay? Now, here's some red flags for this. They have one office. They're going to try to say that they are equal to or even superior to Enagic as far as being a company, but they have one office while Enagic has 7. Some of them are home-based. That's one of the reasons I am adamant about the companies providing an address of where they're located. If you're going to buy a product that costs thousands of dollars, I don't care how much ours costs, okay? Let's just say you're looking at everybody except for Enagic. You're going to look at every ionizer available except for Enagic, which is fine, okay? But before you spend a couple grand on any product, wouldn't it be a good idea for you to at least know who you're dealing with and who you're about to send your $1,000, $2,000 to? Wouldn't that be a good idea? So get their address and then put it in Google Earth. I found one. I found an address that was listed on a company. And when I did the Google search, it was to a house outside of Las Vegas. And I did a Google Earth and there was a broken down car in the front yard. And I kid you not. This was early on, probably 2 years into my doing this. They're not around anymore. But that's what I found. So that's one of the reasons I'm adamant about that. Oh, you're home-based? Well, let me just kind of give you an example. I don't know if you guys know who this is. I didn't want to have anything... actually, you know what? I am going to... Because I didn't want to do this with actual names. But one of the sellers that are in New Jersey, when I looked up their address, it listed it, and this is actually on Realtor.com. I put in the address, found this on Realtor.com. It listed as a 5,000 square foot single family property. And no price was listed for the property, but it indicated through Realtor.com that the average home price for that area was about $225,000. Now, in a stark comparison, I look at the Enagic office in Torrance. Well, I kind of got these specs side by side. So here's what it was. On one side, you had a 5,000 square foot single family residence is what it was. Now, and I've seen houses that have been converted to offices. Okay, that it's not unheard of. Okay, but this is what this was. This is how this was listed on a very reputable website, which is Realtor.com. And for that location, it said it was listed as single family home. Very well could be that it was completely gutted and now it serves as an office for this particular company. Which, if that's the case, that's great. But do not compare your 5,000 square foot single family residence location that has an approximate value of hey, you know what? I'll double that. Let's say that it's worth $500,000. Okay? We'll say it's worth $500,000. Don't try to compare that to Enagic's 23,500 square foot office facility that has a value of $5.5 million. Do not try to compare those two because they're not the same thing. Okay? So that's one of the things that you need to know why. That's why you need to know who you're dealing with. Okay? So be careful of those things. Be careful of these be careful of these major businesses, because that's what they look like on the internet. Because if you know how to play around with a website, you can make your company look like $1 billion, but you could be housed in a strip mall or maybe even a little tiny single room office that you call your national headquarters. Okay? So be careful of that. As a consumer, as a distributor, encourage your consumers and prospects to protect themselves. Protect themselves. Tell them you're not doing me a favor, you're doing you a favor by checking this stuff out. Okay? It's important. Now, one of the other ones, this one got me too. The first time I ever saw this, it was crazy. When you have the address of the location or the name of the person, that's the principal, put those in to a search. One of the things that I found is that sometimes these businesses there's multiple businesses operating from the same address. Now, the one that I saw that was the absolute most, was one that's actually here in California, a little bit south and to the west of us right here. But by putting in the address and the name of the principal, it came up with 23 different business names connected with that same address and that same person. And they were all operating simultaneously. Now, I understand diversification, but the bottom line is it's really hard to run 23 businesses at one time, okay? So watch out for that. That's another reason that finding out as much information as you can about these different companies is extremely important, okay? All right, now let's talk about predatory selling. Okay, a lot of people don't even understand what predatory selling is. Well, let me tell you what predatory selling is. It's doing things like buying keywords on search engines that have nothing to do with your business, but has to do with our business. So there's companies that they will buy the keywords. They'll pay for top ranking. When somebody puts in the term Enagic, when somebody puts in the term Kangen water, when somebody puts in Mr. Oshiro, these other companies have paid to have their company pop up in a sponsored link. Now, for people who are not real savvy on the internet, they don't realize it's a sponsored link. They don't realize it's a pay-to-play. They just see the top-ranking thing, and what do they normally do? Click on the thing at the top. So it's important that you take a look at some of these things. That you put in a search engine search and put in Enagic and see what comes up. Put in Kangen water, see what comes up. Know how they're utilizing a pay-to-play type situation to basically redirect your prospects to their websites, okay? Manipulated emotional response. This is one, if you know me, you know I don't like bullies. I was a small kid when I was growing up, and then I went through a major, like, one summer 6 inches type of thing. I just grew. And then I got pretty big. I was always pretty strong. I was into gymnastics when I was younger. And so I always had a very strong frame. But I don't like bullies. And one of the things that these guys will do is, let's say that I'm talking to a prospect and I, tell them, hey, you know what, you should check this out. They go online and they're going to do it. They are going to go online. So if you know that ahead of time, you prepare for that. You don't try to close your eyes and hope it doesn't happen. You prepare for it. Okay. So they go on, they find this other website. So they call this number. It says, before you buy an adjunct, call this number. So they call it because why? Well, I'm interested. You know the first thing these guys say? And some people have actually called and found this out for themselves, okay? Well, the first things that they'll attack is the fact that all I'm trying to do is make some money off of them. Do you know how much money that person's going to be making from you? They'll try to cast a shadow of doubt in the mind of that person. Even the person could be my brother, but they'll still go this way. They will try to demonize the Enagic distributor in order to try to make themselves look angelic. And unfortunately, some of them get away with it. Some of them they're really good at it. So if you let your people know that that's one of the things that they'll do, they'll use emotional response. So, well, Jerry, what do you mean? What do you think? They're telling them about how good their machine is with the properties and everything? No, they're attacking the method by which the product's being sold. They're attacking the person that introduced it to them. They're attacking the person who offered to give them free water. Are they offering to give them free? No, none of those guys do. But they have the audacity to attack what it is we're doing. Why? Because they're hoping it pisses the other person off to the point where now they won't buy from me, but they'll buy from them because they've basically manipulated their emotions. Okay? This one too, predatory selling. Little to no investment in customer acquisition or procurement. It costs a lot of money to get a customer in business. And if you're not familiar with business, you need to familiarize yourself with some stuff like that. You need to understand what customer acquisition costs and procurement costs actually are. And if you have a better understanding of that, and you understand how this whole thing operates, what these guys basically do is they create a web on the web, hoping that the flies, which are our prospects, will inadvertently wind up stuck there. Because once they get them, what was that? What did the spider say to the fly? He said something to him, but it wasn't good. I can't remember the exact quote, but I remember that. So they have little to no investment, and they don't, and that's one of the reasons that they thrive. Why? Because they just sit there and wait for our people to show up. They don't have to put any money towards it. But an adjunct, man, it's a whole different story. They're putting dough all over the place to make sure that why do you think we're getting paid? That's part of the customer acquisition and procurement costs. The monies that we get paid, that's part of it. If you look at a business budget of what it takes to make money, that is a piece of it. So if these guys can eliminate that, they're creating an unfair business environment for them compared to us. Okay? They'll literally steal the customers from our work. Okay, that's really what they're doing. Okay, they attack the marketplace method of introduction instead of functionality and quality. They're going to talk about the fact that it's being sold in a direct sales. Who cares? Who cares? Well, nobody really should. But because they can manipulate it and twist it around and say, oh, this person's getting that money. Well, let me ask you something, folks. As long as you're not a moron, who do you think's getting the money when you buy it from them? They are. The person you're talking to, the person that is so adamantly trying to convince you not to buy our product is the one who's going to be getting the dough from the sale of their product. And you're trusting this person? It's like, come on, are you kidding me? Do you think they're somehow a consumer advocate? Of course not. They're looking to get paid, guys. They're looking to get paid. And your prospects need to be reminded of that fact. They are not talking to the Better Business Bureau. They're not talking to a consumer advocacy group. They're talking to a salesperson that's doing everything in their power to sell their product to that person on that call. Okay? That's what they're doing. And that's predatory. They attack price instead of benefit. They will attack the price. Oh my God, $4,000. Well, we have a machine that's only $2,000. Who cares? Hyundai. Look, let's look at this real quick. Hyundai has a car that only costs $17,200, and Mercedes has a car that costs $52,500. And look at this list. They're practically identical. Now, do you think anybody's going to fall for this and that these are the same? Of course not. Why? Why wouldn't they? Because people are familiar with this. People are familiar with cars. They're just not familiar with ionizers. That's why you have to make sure they understand. It doesn't have to be the same product for Consumer 101 to apply, okay? Because the rules still apply. It's really important you realize that, okay? The product comparison. One of the reasons that they compare, okay, so a lot of people will say, well, they say that their $2,000 product is the same as our $4,000. Okay, that's because they can't say that their $2,000 product is the same as our $1,900 product. Why? Well, because then they'd be admitting that all of our other top-end products are out of their realm to be able to compete with. They can't compete with that. So they compare their product to our best because they have to. But the reality is you don't compare a pedal car to a Ferrari. You just don't. You don't do that. Okay? Even if it's a Ferrari pedal car. You don't go. Why? Because they're not the same, guys. They're not the same. So just realize that. That's one of the reasons that they're always comparing to our best. Because if they ever didn't, okay, if they were ever actually honest with the consumers, they'd never sell one of their machines. They just wouldn't. Okay? And here's another thing when it comes to predatory selling. When it comes to former distributors from Enagic that are now representing some of the machine, let me tell you what the reality is. 99.9% of the time. 99.9. There is that 0.1 where there's an exception every now and again, but 99.9% of the times, if there was a former distributor who's now with another company, it's because either they burned bridges and they destroyed their own reputation by their own actions, or they simply couldn't hang in the big leagues. That's really what it boils down to. That's, what happens when somebody, goes to the big leagues and they can't hack it? Well, they get set back down to the minors. And that basically is really what it boils down to. If you can't sell the best product in its entire industry, then maybe sales is not cut out for you. Okay? Because if you have to sell the cheapest thing that's out there in order to be a successful seller, then you're not a successful seller. Okay? You're a purveyor of crap. That's what you are. And I'm sorry to put it like that, but that's basically what it boils down to. Okay? So, for those former distributors that are out there, if, when they're approaching people and they're like, well, I'm gonna give you the real facts. No, they're not. They're gonna give you the real facts, their version of the real facts, which is always going to be slighted. It's always going to be biased. Okay? Speaking of biased, let's talk about review websites. Very simple on this one. There are none that are out there that are unbiased. Okay? None. Zero. Even for Enagic, and I want people to understand it. See, when I give a training, I'm giving the truth all the way across the board. Even if it doesn't like bode well for us in a way. Okay? But there's websites that are out there that do comparisons that rank Enagic top, but you know what? It's by an Enagic distributor. And I will say that. It's not to say that the information is inaccurate, but it is important to make sure that we admit that yes, it is biased. It is biased. If I put information on my website or whatever that says Enagic is the best, well, as an Enagic distributor, somebody affiliated with Enagic, I am biased in that opinion. It does not mean that my opinion is false. It doesn't mean that it's not true, but it does mean it is biased. Okay? But I'm honest with people, and I'll tell them that. And I'll tell them, I've looked at everything, and this is the one that I found to be the best. Okay? Consumer Reports, you already saw the little thing. Nope, they haven't done it. They haven't done anything on ionizers. Why? They're not in the marketplace strong enough. There's not a strong enough marketplace percentage of users to warrant them doing any kind of testing or anything to protect consumers. Why? Simply not enough consumers have the products yet. Okay? And for these review websites, this is something that you really need to understand. These are sales sites. They are not consumer protection sites. That's all. They're sales sites. How do you know? Because you can buy certain ones. And I can always say that you go to a review website, whoever is being ranked number one, is whoever's behind that site. Okay? And ironically, Enagic is typically always number 2. Always. Right behind their number 1. Okay? But they're not. They're sales sites. How do you know? Because you can go on that site and you can buy the one brand, but you can't buy the other. That means it's a sales site for that specific brand. Okay? Scientific rebuttals. This one is just, it's there was this guy who made this report and he was like, oh, this whole alkaline water thing is, a sham and it's not scientific and blah, blah, blah. Well, this dude graduated his science stuff in the 60s. He was a professor from, I think, someplace in Canada or something. Nothing wrong with Canada. Don't get me wrong on that, guys. But this guy was really nothing when it really came to it. As far as his credentials overall were so lacking that him coming forward as like an expert, it was for no other reason than to promote himself. It's really what it boiled down to, okay? So they manipulate scientific rebuttals to serve specific purposes, like the whole pure water, okay? That was this guy's contention. Well, pure water can't be ionized. Well, that's correct, and no one ever said it could. Because if you understand what pure water is, they're talking about water that has been void of any kind of mineral content, and that is sometimes used for scientific experimentation. Is because that way it's a control. It doesn't have anything that might be doing something to it one way or the other. Okay, but just so everybody understands, that whole pure water thing, it doesn't exist in nature. It is a man-made abomination. Okay, because any water in nature is filled with minerals naturally, okay? A lot of times the scientific rebuttals that you run into, they're created to confuse, not provide answers, okay? They'll use very technical jargon in hopes that you will feel stupid if you ask questions about it, so you just nod in agreement because you don't want to look dumb, okay? And again, I mentioned this before, but basically they're comparing apples to lug nuts, man. That's what they're doing. They're not doing a head-to-head comparison. They're doing a comparison that doesn't make any sense a lot of the times. So this brings us to the wrap-up. I'm just going to read this because I sometimes put specific stuff that I want to make sure I read specifically, and this is one of them. Okay? So, Enagic didn't set the bar for our industry. Okay? And this is an important statement. Enagic didn't set the bar for our industry. Enagic is the bar for our industry. We're constantly attacked and compared to. Why? Because we're the best. It's what comes with being the best. When you're the best, everybody who isn't is gunning for you. That is a reality, not just in business. It's a reality in sports. It's a reality in your job and workplace. When you're the best, everybody guns for you, okay? You need to remind consumers of what they already know when it comes to the best in the industry. Here's a question for you, okay? If the difference between a Hyundai and a Ferrari was only $2,000, do you think you would see any Hyundais on the road? Or would you see a lot more Ferraris? Okay? Ask you that. So you're like, Jerry, why would you ask that type of question? Because if the difference between lower quality and top quality is only $2,000, isn't that a small enough amount of money to warrant going with the best instead of the rest? There's a difference between the best and the rest, and there's a lot more than the price of the product. Okay? I'm going to say that one again. There is a difference between the best and the rest, and it is a lot more than just the price. If you want to make our so-called competition a non-issue, and make sure your prospects know what the real difference is. All the differences, okay? And don't forget, Consumer 101, you get what you pay for. I use this example a lot when it comes to this. If you're married, let's say that you're coming up on your 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 year anniversary, okay? Any of those. And you're a gentleman. And you've decided you're going to go buy your wife a gift for your anniversary. Would you go to the 99-cent store to buy it? And I can tell you this. If your answer is yes, man, your marriage is not going to last. Sorry, man. You might as well save your dough. You're going to need it for your divorce lawyer. Okay? Here's the reality. When we're looking for quality, we don't go to discount shops, right? It's common sense. You just sometimes have to remind people of the common sense they forgot they have. Okay? A couple of announcements. I want to remind everybody that the Ride the Wave 6, the Going 6A edition, it's available in print and digitally on the going6a.com website. Click on shop or store. And it is available on there. There's a couple other things that are also available there. So if you want to, get some stuff or take a look, it's there. Make sure that you receive notices by subscribing to our email list. Again, just go to the go to that resource website, going6a.com. And also, I want to let everybody know there are videos on there, printable downloads, all sorts of different things on there. It's a resource site. And it's been provided for free for everybody to, be able to utilize. So it's going6a.com. Make sure that you know that. And if you are not on our mailing list, just go to going6a.com, click on subscribe, and then subscribe. Okay? Our next live training is going to be Monday, November 12th, 6 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We're going to be discussing water sharing techniques and strategies. This is going to be a great training, especially for brand new distributors. Okay, I'm going to share with you how water sharing can really level the playing field for you, especially when you first get started. Okay, now for those in the Riverside, Orange, and San Diego counties, tomorrow is our new live True Health seminar. It's at the office in. Just show you this real quick. It's in the office in Murrieta that we're working with a couple of our of other distributors in Enagic that we are working with. We're not even on the same team, but we're working closely together because that's how we do things here. Okay. So tomorrow's the hell. Now here's an interesting piece. Okay, if you know anybody who is in this area, okay, San Diego County, Orange County, or the Inland Empire, Riverside County area, let them know about this, okay? Because we're going to be we're introducing a brand new presentation slides and enhanced properties demo. And tomorrow, my son Nathaniel, the original Kangen kid, he's been around this thing since he was like 10 or 11. He and I are going to be doing the entire presentation together and the demonstration. But we're also going to be there with our good friends Bill and Emily Mabry and Bob Brown. They will also be there, to answer questions. And, there's great information that these guys put out there. Now, for those of you that don't know this, one of the PowerPoints that is used in probably more demos than any other is the one I put together 11 years ago. And, it's been refined and it's been used. In talking with a couple different corporate staff, some different people, they thought it was time for a slightly different approach. And so that's the reason for this newly created PowerPoint. And we introduced it at our last live meeting. That was actually the first one. And it was received with rave reviews. And we've already made some additional changes to it. So I think this could become the new standard when it comes to presentations of the Enagic information. So if you're in this area, I invite you to come out, take a look, and see some of the changes that are happening at Enagic and the way that we're introducing people to this incredible technology and this very amazing company. So thanks for joining us tonight. We hope this information helps you and your team members, and we look forward to seeing you on our next live training. All for now, my name is Gerald Kostecka. Thanks a lot. We'll see you soon.